Earlier this week, a UK judge denied extradition for WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange to the United States. Journalist Glenn Greenwald, who's worked with Assange in the past, he tweeted out this support for the decision, saying, quote, "The rejection by the UK court of the US government's request to extradite Julian Assange to stand trial on espionage is obviously great. Ultimately, though, from a humanitarian and a political perspective, what matters most is that Assange be freed as soon as possible."
Joining us now to discuss and expand on his thoughts is friend of the show, journalist and co-founding editor of The Intercept, Glenn Greenwald, and writer of, tell us the name of your newsletter, Glenn, so people can find it there on Substack.
It's greenwald.substack.com.
There you go.
There you go. All right, Glenn, just bring us up to date here. I mean, this is one of the stories that's so important this week and kind of got buried by the insanity of the week and the fact that the media doesn't really want to cover it anyway. So I know you went through this judgment that was issued. What were the relevant issues here?
Well, the reason this indictment of Assange by the Trump Justice Department is so controversial is that the Obama Justice Department, despite really wanting to, had concluded it couldn't prosecute Assange because it would pose a grave threat to press freedom. How do you criminalize his publication of documents without criminalizing publication of the same documents by The Guardian, The New York Times, and multiple other papers? And what they tried to do was find something that he did beyond just receiving the documents as a journalist would, to say that he was part of the conspiracy and couldn't. When Mike Pompeo and Jeff Sessions got into office, they explicitly vowed to make the destruction of WikiLeaks one of their main priorities. And so this indictment was constructed in a way that would essentially criminalize the core duties of investigative journalism. And the arguments that were made by Assange's lawyers against extradition to the United States were all about that it was politically motivated, it was designed to punish him for journalism. And the judge rejected all of those. She sided with the government, the U.S. government, in almost every single instance. The only reason she denied extradition was because she said that the U.S. prison system is so brutal and repressive, especially for people accused of national security crimes, and when they harbor animosity for people like they do for Assange, isolation 23 and a half hours a day, cut off from the outside world, that the likelihood is quite high that he would kill himself. And under British law, you can't extradite to a country where there's a likelihood of death, including by suicide. And so it was a positive outcome in the sense that she rejected the extradition request from the U.S. government, something that's very rare, especially from the British. But it was disappointing in the sense that she accepted all of the government's arguments about why the prosecution was merited, except for this one about the U.S. prison system being too harsh for his current mental state.
So, Glenn, what is the future for Julian Assange's defense? Because as I understand it, that this appeal is going to be appealed by the U.S. government in the United Kingdom. And what is his status as a detainee in the U.K.? I mean, will he be released? If they think he's, suicidal, are they taking care of him? Are they going to let him go? What's going on there?
So I think it's important to realize how extreme the situation is. Like, the ability for a government to put you in prison before you've been convicted of anything is one of the most extreme and severe powers the government can exercise. It should be done only in the rarest of circumstances. In this case, not only has Assange been repeatedly denied bail on the grounds that the last time he got bail in 2012, he sought asylum and received it in the Ecuadorian embassy, but now that the extradition request has been rejected, there are no charges for him to face. He's not in prison because he's been convicted of a crime. He's in prison because he's accused of crimes that the court has said he can't be forced to go to the United States to be tried on. So there are no charges that he can be tried on. And yet, after that ruling, Assange's lawyers requested that he be released on bail, and the judge denied it on the grounds that because the U.S. government is appealing her decision rejecting extradition, he has to remain in prison pending resolution of that appeal, which could be a year, it could be longer. And so in a way, it's the best of all worlds for the U.S. government and the worst of all worlds for justice. He remains in prison and silenced and disappeared without any need to actually prove that he committed any crimes. That's what makes this such a miscarriage of justice.
Yeah. And so what happens next, Glenn?
So there is now an appeal. The U.S. government has officially filed their appeal. Presumably, the British appellate court will rule on this appeal from the U.S. government within 6 to 12 months. Most people believe the way she ruled, the lower court judge, will make it very hard for the U.S. government to win. But in the meantime, he will remain in this high security prison, Belmarsh prison, and have no chance of being let out until the appellate court gets around to deciding the extradition request, the appeal of the ruling.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being all over this story, Glenn. I mean, it has such central issues for freedom of the press in the U.S. You would think that the media would show more interest, but they haven't really.
Yeah,
so
right.
Thank you for helping
Glenn.
inform us here. We appreciate it.
Well, I'm glad you guys have me, so thanks very much.
Always will.
Of course.
All right, bye.
More Rising for you after this.